Hello, this is Nancy Orlen Weber, and I am here with a friend of mine over, I don't even remember how many years, 40 years or so, but we'll find out. And I'd first like to introduce him as somebody I was very fortunate to meet at that time. And when we started Court TV series, Psychic Detective, I think that was the very first story we did together. And it's my honor and pleasure to know that I know his family, love them, beautiful people, all of them. And I asked him if he would talk about the things we all are interested in about from a law enforcement point of working with a psychic or even opening up to the possibility. So I'd love to introduce William Hughes. I call him Bill. So Bill, if you don't mind, that's how I know you.
Yeah,
would you give us
fine.
a little of your work history, please?
Yeah, I was a municipal police officer with Mount Olive Township, Morris County, New Jersey. I started there in 1978. In 1985, I left there and went to the state police and did almost 26 years there.
And what was your work with the state police? I'm curious.
As a trooper, I was pretty much a road trooper. I was on the road all the time doing patrol, doing the highways, doing towns that didn't have their own police departments. We would do general police duties
So
for those towns.
I happen to know that after you retired, you did something else that you really love doing also.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I still do it. I went to work in NASCAR driving motorhomes for some of the drivers in NASCAR. And right now, myself and Donna, we drive a motorhome, but not for drivers anymore. We do hospitality, which means when the teams bring sponsors, these people that are spending a lot of money to put their names on a race car, we entertain, we cook and make sure they're comfortable before the race starts.
So he's an all-around guy. Absolutely. I ask that because as somebody who in my life, I've worn a police uniform temporarily. Mm-hmm. I'm a minister, nurse, did the baby blessing for your granddaughter, one of them.
Yes.
And so we've intertwined both our own and with others, each independently, having lots of different things we love doing. You went from police work to NASCAR to hospitality for NASCAR. You've switched on and off to whatever you like doing. We still get a little background noise, and my apologies to people. I don't know what that's about, and I'm not an audio expert, but I think this is so important. We just ignore that. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I have somebody that wants to meet you.
Hold on. Oh, is that the pooches?
That's your background noise.
Oh, you made all that sound all by yourself? I don't believe it. How did you make all that sound by yourself?
He wants to get up on the couch and he can't jump up by himself, so I gotta hoist him up.
Yes, hoist him. So cute.
Quiet.
No.
He's usually sleeping all the time. He's 13. He's usually sleeping.
Oh, yes, but he hears something's going on. So, Bill, did you ever work with any psychics before we met?
I did not.
What was your opinion about that field?
I was always open-minded about it. It's kind of fascinating. There's so much stuff out here in the world that we know nothing about or very little about, and it's a big universe. And so I was never really skeptical about it. I thought there was some legitimacy to it, certainly.
And we met, I think the first time was the gas station that went on fire or something like that, was it?
I believe
the arson?
The
auto shop?
tire place.
Yeah.
The tire. Yeah, the tire place. I didn't work that case. Ernie Powers, detective that I worked with, um, used you for that case,
But you were in the
and
car, I
that's
think.
how. Uh, I probably was, but I really wasn't involved in the investigation. I
Right,
just happened to be riding along with Ernie at the time. So,
right. Yes, but that's the first time I remember meeting you.
okay, that's right. Yep.
So how else did we connect? Do you remember the first that we actually connected?
Well, we'd always, after we met that initial meeting, we stayed friends, and I would stop by your house every now and then, and but like for coffee, just pretty much social visits. And
We
I
s-
had, up to that point, I'd never used you.
we make better coffee now. So sorry, but next time you come up, better coffee. Dick's an expert at it. So uh let's go to the case we worked together. Well, that you and Captain Jim Moore had worked with you. Can you talk about your impression initially between the first time we connected about it? Do you remember?
Um,
You
yeah, I
did stop
remember.
by.
I mean, I didn't come looking for any help from you at that point. Myself and Ernie Powers and Jim Moore, we were all part of a task force investigating Amy Hoffman's murder. And we really didn't, because we're on the outlying area of the county, and her murder happened more easterly. So we really weren't that heavily involved in it, but uh, we we were tasked with running down leads if something came up and the other guys were too busy. There was about 30 or 40 guys on this task force, and it was just one of those times I stopped by your house to have one of those coffees that we always have. And I didn't go there to ask you for any help or anything like that. I just went to have a coffee. And you asked me, you had read all the news releases about the case, and
Mhm.
it came up in our conversation while I was enjoying the coffee. And you said, Bill, they're lying about that girl not being raped, because at that point they didn't think there had been a sexual assault. And that's what we were led to believe in the briefing that we had at the task force meeting.
Mm.
And you brought that up. She said, oh, she was definitely sexually assaulted. And so that rung a bell. I said, how would Nancy know that? They already told us she wasn't sexually assaulted.
What
So
did
I
you think?
planted that. Well, I was just at that point, I was amazed. I said, said, she's probably right. And I said, I can't imagine. I would always thought to myself, I can't imagine this guy doing what he did and not taking advantage of the girl. I said, I always said there had to be something else there other than just a thrill kill.
So your police work kicked in, and your knowledge base and experience about the psychology of the people you run into all the time gives you a good base. And so
Mhm.
your antenna was also up about,
Yeah.
and that may be why you felt, I could be right.
Oh,
Because you already
absolutely.
thought so. Right. Interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you.
And,
Okay.
well, and then we ended up going. We had the second murder, Deidre O'Brien, and we went to a second task force meeting down at the county academy, and they were briefing us on that murder. And they acknowledged at that point that yes, she had Amy had been sexually assaulted, and there was a sexual assault or an attempted sexual assault with Deidre. He never got that far with her. And it clicked. I remembered what you had told me that day we were having coffee, and the briefing went on. Then we were all dismissed, and I grabbed Jimmy Moore because Jimmy was a high-ranking man with Parsippany PD. He was a captain, been a detective for a long time, had a lot more experience than I did as a police officer, and especially as a detective. And I brought up the idea of getting you involved. And I didn't know how he would react because, you're always dealing with skeptics. Jimmy, he jumped right on board. He couldn't wait to talk to you.
Really?
Yes.
You see,
He
I'm
couldn't
learning
wait.
as we go. I remember the knock at the door and the two of you standing there,
Yep.
and how you said to me, tell Jimmy what you said, because I recall knowing she was raped and that she was naked, because the newspaper said she was fully dressed. And I'm thinking, you're crazy.
That's correct.
Right.
So I told Jimmy, I explained to Jimmy, and I was fortunate to find a guy with an open mind. I said, Nancy told me this 2 weeks ago, that she had been raped, that Amy had been raped, and that she was clothless at the time. And so at that point, Jimmy was on board.
The funny thing, as you say that I am also thinking, based on what I think about why you would know it, is almost the same reason I might even assume what had happened, because of my own personal experience about, I was a rape victim once, but I also worked in psychiatry with acute psychotics. So I was very familiar with a lot of the psychology of people who are violent, let's say. So maybe I also jumped to conclusion, but it felt different than, and if we could exchange exactly how each of us got there to that part, I would say that there was a little piece of it for me that surprised me, that I was so sure of what happened. It's one thing to make my assumption based on prior experience or knowledge base, etc. It's another to have that other funny feeling that no, she was naked, no, the details surprised me. And it surprised me when I went over it and both of you heard me. Very surprised. And then you asked me to go for a ride.
That's correct. We made an appointment just to go around to the different scenes. We had 2 murder scenes now, 2 abductions. So we did that. Myself, Ernie, you, Jimmy Moore, would just go riding around the county to different places that we knew the killer had taken Amy and Deidre. And we didn't give you any details of where exactly we were going. It would be a general vicinity. And then when we got close, you would guide us. All right, go over here. All right. And sure enough, you'd take us right to where the abduction took place, right where we suspected, or they suspected, that Kadadich was stalking. And you pointed out, and you came up with your feelings about what the girls might have been feeling when everything was transpiring. But yeah, we never took you directly to a spot. We would get close, and then you would lead us the rest of the way.
So in working that way, how did you place it in your work, working with a psychic, part of a team, or how did you treat it in, within yourself and you and Jim talking? Anything that, from your point of view of law, courts, having a psychic say something and it ends up in court somehow? All those things. Did you consider any of it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not going to fly in a court of law.
Right.
Well, our opinion is that, you would take us to a place, and we're trying to develop credibility for you too. That's why we never took you directly any place. We'd take you someplace, and then you would do the rest, and you would tell us what happened. And sure enough, knowing some of the details of what actually did happen, you were spot on. So what that does is it leads us in a direction to look for something tangible, something that we can take to court, because we just can't go to court and bring you to court and say, well, she felt this, she felt that. Right. But if you meet us someplace and we can find tangible evidence, then, that'll help the case. It was teamwork.
Right. What I felt for myself going there, I was so comfortable being with the two of you, particularly in the car, driving to Morristown, driving to Mendham, going to the prosecutor's office that one time, American Road abduction.
Morris Plains. Yeah, that little command post they had set up there. Yep, I remember that.
Right. And
I didn't even get the car parked, and they kicked you and Jimmy out of the office. I dropped you guys off. I dropped you off. You guys were going in. I was looking for a place to park because everybody and their son was there.
right.
And I'm looking for a place to park, and you and Jimmy come walking right out the door. Yeah.
That was quick, huh? It's a very strange world of knowing, for instance, the lead investigator. I don't know if I may have told you. So I'm going to jump ahead and tell you something, and it may be something I have mentioned. About 10, 12 years ago, I had a bookkeeper for several years named Monica, a lovely woman. And one day she walked in, she had this gray cardboard box with her. And she said, I didn't know you worked on the Kadadich case. And I said, yeah, I did. Oh, you saw it on TV? She said, yeah, I did. She said, you know, I was the right-hand person to Joe O'Brien. Jim O'Brien? What's his name? Maybe Deidre's father.
Yeah, I believe it was Jim.
Jim O'Brien. Sorry, Jim. And she said, I worked for him. I said, oh, okay. Not knowing anything about why she's even bringing this up. She said, well, you know, he was very, very close because he was a freeholder, whatever that meant. I still don't know what that is in the county. I never looked it up, never cared.
Just another layer. It's just another layer of government.
Thank you. And he was apparently best friends with the chief prosecutor, who informed him of the entire case, word for word, including that his other daughters were almost ran off by Kadadich. And I can recall mentioning to you and Jim a variety of things I was picking up about the investigating prosecutor's ego. I have to be careful. And that he kind of ostracized everything. And so when we were at the court and thrown out, he was the one, not the chief. And that Monica then handed me this cardboard box. And she said, here is every single thing that happened about the case from the very beginning. The 5 towns that called in that I remember saying. And when we went to Mendham, that was a strange moment for me too. And it's made me stop again and again, go, how did we do that? How did you two? But I choked because I point out that I want to go to the police in Mendham, and I point, and you take me there. And you two, I don't know which one of you said this. I don't remember, but it was a shock to me. You said to the captain, she has information about the murderer of Amy and Deidre. And I'm thinking, that's how he doesn't even know what I do or how I do it. And I thought, oh my God, what am I supposed to do here? Oh, and so when I said you had an officer who gave a ticket because of the speeding and the odd car and whatever in the summer, and the officer's last name begins with a C, and the captain, he didn't blink. And, you know, I expected him to say, who the hell are you, right? He didn't say a word about that. He just said, well, we have 2 with the last name. I said, the one with the hard C, not the soft C. He said, oh, you mean Costanza. So Tommy Costanza kept that ticket on Kadadich in his drawer for years, furious because he called it in.
Yes.
And I have the proof. I have Trumbull's word on it. I have the papers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're locked away where nobody can get them. because I don't
Well,
want anybody to be mad, but mistakes happen. People are human,
yeah.
right? And
The,
that was a
the
very,
interesting
sorry.
the interesting part about that story, where we went to Mendham Police Department, was we had gone up to the reservoir,
Mhm.
and you had walked around there, and we left, and Randolph, the reservoir was in Randolph Township, but Mendham borders Randolph, and that reservoir was right on the border of the two towns. So when we left the reservoir, we crossed town lines. We entered Mendham now,
Oh,
and you asked me, what town are we in? And I said, well, we're in Mendham now. And you said, he does not like the cops here. And some interaction, something happened here
oh,
where he's really upset with the cops in this town, especially one. And that's when we went to the police headquarters and you did your thing.
I'm glad you have a good memory.
Well,
I don't
it's hard to
remember that.
forget stuff like that. So,
Well, Jimmy said that he took note of everything I said. He
mhm.
was taking the notes while you drove,
Yep,
I think, right?
yep, absolutely.
So let's go to sum up and take a look just overall at that. How does it feel? Would you work with, if you were still in law enforcement, or if you were to talk to other people in it, or give lectures to people who want to come to it, education, would you advise them to look at psychics in general? Or if you would advise them at all to be open-minded, what would they need to know on your end as law enforcement about what to look for in a psychic? You pointed out certain things already beautifully, where you would lead and then stop leading because the rest was up to me to point out as proof. Anything else you could think of?
No, that's the key thing. Just let the person or whoever. First off, I wouldn't put a skeptic with you. If I was the lead investigator in the case, I wouldn't put a skeptic with you.
Why?
I would put someone with an open mind.
Oh, okay.
And number two, I would advise them, don't take her direct, take her to the general vicinity, of where something happened, and let her do the rest, or him. I mean, the psychic could be him too, and just let them do the rest. And if you're not impressed, then there's nothing I could do to help you. So,
Right. How would you start though? Let's say a psychic contacts law enforcement. I never did. So it's not the way I work.
Mhm.
Let's say one says, I have some information regarding a case. What would you suggest to those working a case who pick up the phone? Any thoughts?
Listen. Listen to any information that they give you. May not be acceptable in court, but it may lead you in a direction where you're going to find evidence that will be accepted in court.
Right.
So,
And you may not. Right.
you may not.
Right.
We found out a lot of stuff about this guy that nobody knew about riding with you. And that after he was arrested, everything you said about him was spot on. So we had no idea who we were looking for, the background of this guy, where he had lived, where he had worked. And just driving around, you would point out, he worked in this town. Driving on 80 through little tiny Wharton, New Jersey, has about 0.2 of a mile on Interstate 80. It's surrounded by Jefferson, Rockaway, and Roxbury Township. And so if you're driving down 80, you blink twice and you're out of Wharton. And we were driving east on 80. I'll never forget it. And as soon as we crossed over into Wharton, into that little bit, you said he's got a connection with this town. You asked me what town we were in. I said Wharton right now. He's got a connection to this town. He's either lived here or worked here. Well, after he was arrested, we found out that, him and his brother had worked at a gas station in Wharton. Now, what are the odds? What are the odds of that little tiny 0.2 of a mile and you get hit with this feeling that this guy had a connection to this town because we were in and out of it that fast.
Well, I didn't know the details that you're telling. And when I see that, I always think of it as the spiky stuff that stands out for me, that all of a sudden the energy is not the same as it was all along. And I can't even explain that, whether it's inside that all of a sudden I feel, ooh, bad changes. I don't think so. I think more that moving through that space, I felt like that had been a troubled spot and he knew it. He was familiar. I don't understand. I really don't understand all of it either about what goes on that I can do that part. I'm curious about it. So I start picking it apart and looking like, how are all those things possible? But then one of my students talked about Gettysburg, and I've been to Yorktown Heights in New York and walked the grounds of where war was. And so you could feel the energy of places, right? To some degree, and we're getting a little echo, so I'm moving back, I think. Okay. So
even the non-trained, even the average citizen, when they go to Gettysburg, the feelings that they come out of there with, or they're changed forever. People are changed forever.
Exactly. So I'm thinking, I don't know why we're getting an echo all of a sudden. Let me see. We're not getting it now. Okay. Sorry, folks, but I find it, I hope it's useful for everyone. Bill, do you have any other thought about it before we close?
There's a lot that we missed, Nancy, that perhaps another time we could discuss it, but
Sure.
As stuff that you did riding around with us, that just 40 plus years ago, it was 1981 or something like that, 82, I think. So we're talking 40 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday because I was just amazed at what we experienced. And a good friendship was born.
Wasn't it? Because while we may jump off here, we're about to have our own private discussion about how you help law enforcement understand how to live a balanced life and psychologically healthy one, so that you perform without fear and with lots of compassion. And that is a goal, and we're hoping we can do something about it a little bit, put our heads together a little bit and find a way to maybe make a difference. And we are going to invite some other friends who have worked in various parts and see what happens. So I thank you so much, Bill. I am going to close this talk right now and stop the recording. So thank you all for watching. I hope it has helped you understand that we don't understand everything that goes on here. We don't know why it all happens that way. For me, I believe that the universe knows exactly where to take us and when. And it's not only the horrific issues that we were working on, sadly, for everybody involved, and the rippling effect it had on so many, especially the families and friends, close friends, but it's also established a bond that is never broken between those who care. And so this is my family. He's my very big brother. He's very tall, younger, but very tall. So have a great day, everybody.